So at E3, we learned a lot about Call of Duty Black Ops 3 multiplayer. We got to see a lot of the new innovations you're bringing, because you're really changing things up in the multiplayer. But here at Gamescom, you brought some announcements with regards to the sort of the eSports side of things, very much connected to the multiplayer. Can you sort of give us a brief overview of what kind of things you've announced so far?
Yeah, so thank you. At E3, we obviously talked about core movement. We talked about our customization strategy with Gunsmith and Paint Shop, and we talked about the specialist. And here at Gamescom Cologne, for us, we really wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity and a forum to discuss our competitive agenda. So Call of Duty eSports has seen a lot of good growth over the years, and we are really big fans of that scene, and we want to do things to support it. So this game has done a lot of things to support it. So I'll start you through the top and kind of work you through all the things that are going on, because it's quite involved. So stop me at any point if you need to. So the very important thing to sort of say off the bat about the esports agenda is we've actually have a focused area of the game that was called League Play in Black Ops 2, but it's actually called Arena in Black Ops 3. And the name change was important to us because it works very differently than League Play did. So accessibility of the feature is very important to us. So the way that the Arena ranking works is that your rank is based exclusively on wins and wins alone. So you have to string together a series of wins to actually improve your rank. And if you lose, then 2 games in a row, then you can drop rank. So that's very easy for people to follow. They don't have to understand a secret math formula. They don't have to understand the points behind the scene and why did I earn 150 points or 50 points, or right? So it's just easy. And then we depend on the matchmaking to do the heavy lifting about making sure that you're in the right game with the right people at your appropriate skill rank, and then you're moving up and down that way. And that's very accessible to people. So it's just something that you understand, win or lose, right? It's not much to think about there. So that's the big thing that's a lot different from Black Ops 2 into Black Ops 3, and it sets the foundation for the other things. So the other things are actually the game features that we talk about. So in Arena or in custom games, when you're playing competitively, a couple of very important things happen. The first thing that happens is what we call bans and protects. So it's very simple to understand. Every player in the game has a vote, and they can use that vote to either ban a piece of content so that it's not available in that match, or protect a piece of content so that it is available in that match. So I'll give you an example of how this got used yesterday in our demonstration match. So there was a guy who was particularly effective with Vision Pulse, which is a specialist ability. So what the team did was protect Vision Pulse so that he could be ensured that he would be able to get it later, right? So there's this whole new strategy and meta layer that's happening. This is all going on before you even play the game. So after you do the bans and protects process, then we have what's called the specialist draft, and this is equally important. So normally in multiplayer, if you wanted to be, let's say, Ruin Overdrive, I could also be Ruin Overdrive. In fact, our whole team could be Ruin Overdrive if we want it to be. Now, in a public game, you're not necessarily playing with, people that you know necessarily. You're playing with maybe a couple friends or by yourself. But when you're playing competitively, you're usually playing with people that you know. So it's very important for us to make sure that the game has a wide spread. So if you pick Ruin Overdrive, I cannot, even though I'm on your team. So there can be 2 Ruin Overdrives in the game, but they have to be on different teams. So that's the specialist draft. It's kind of like old schoolyard pickup games where you said, I want this player, and then he wants that player, and you go through that process. So after those 2 steps are complete, you have a little bit of a time to make adjustments to your classes, your created classes, just in case something was banned, so you can adjust it and adjust your score streaks, and then the game starts. You play through the game, and then you get your ranking at the end, and you either move up in rank, or you stay the same, or you go back down, depending on whether you win or lost. So it's really an important part of the experience, that whole meta layer in front.
I got a question about the bans and protects there. Say the other team bans something that your team protects. How does that sort of play out, and what happens then?
Yeah, great question. So in fact, they can't. So if you issue a protect, they cannot ban it. So the bans and protects impact everybody. So if you ban something, it's banned for your team and the other team. Yeah. If I protect something, it's protected for my team, but it's also protected for your team.
So how does that mean? I mean, if you actually pick the exact same thing, then does that mean you can use your bans for something else if it's protected, or that is not available, or how does that work out? Because you don't want to sort of waste your bans on something that's not
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean by this. So it's pretty easy because the way that this works is not everybody is doing this at the same time, right? So the team captains, the number one players, they're doing it. Then player 2 for both teams, player 3 for both teams, player 4 for both teams, player 5 for both teams, so et cetera down the line. So it's very sequential. So you know what was already protected or banned when it becomes your turn to make the vote. So when you go into the protects and bans, you have to actually think about, okay, if what I want I can't protect, or, you know, so you have to have a plan, then you have to have a backup plan to your plan. So it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of a chess match, right, that's happening before you play a kind of what would otherwise be a fairly traditional Call of Duty game, but there's this new little strategy layer going on in front of it. But the big important part about this really is that this process is completely about player agency. What I mean by that is the players are in complete control over what's protected and banned. Not me, right, at the studio, not the professional league or the tournament organizers, the players, and they decide match to match, right? So what's important to protect or ban in one game, say a search and destroy game, may be completely different in a hardpoint game or an uplink game. So it's pretty fun to watch this get used and how people are going to do this thing when they're playing competitively.
Yeah, I mean, I can just imagine, like, at sort of the championship level, what kind of strategy can go into this, because it's sort of like a lot of other games where a lot of the game gets decided already at that stage, you know, when you set things up on that sort of setup screen.
Yeah, so, you know, traditionally in competitive Call of Duty, content would get restricted, meaning it's just not available. So this is a completely customizable solution. So what I mean by this is we can still restrict content if we think it's appropriate to do so it's just restricted, meaning you can't protect it or ban it because you can't use it at all. But we can put anything we want in the protects and bans system. So right now, the way that we set up the game for the show floor to demonstrate the feature is everything's in there. That's 100 pieces of content. But in reality, we could actually just put 50 in, or just these things in. So it's actually quite flexible in this way. In fact, right now it's set up where you only get one vote, but it can be multiple votes. So this is always really important to us that when we make this arena experience, we will set it up the way that we think makes the most sense for arena. That's probably going to be one vote, right? It's probably going to mean a lot of content to protect and ban. But in a custom game, when you play your own competitions on your own terms with your own friends and your own league or your own tournament, then you can go into custom games and change all of those rules and decide, well, for our tournament, we want everyone to have 4 protects and bans, or you want everyone to not be able to ban this, period. Right? So you can set it up where things are only bannable but can't be protected, right? So all of this customization is actually exposed to the player as part of the custom game settings so that they can do whatever they feel is appropriate to run the tournament that they're trying to run.
I can just imagine the people who are setting up for sort of the championship and stuff, that they have so many options now to choose from and things to consider with this. There's just going to be a lot more options available for that.
Yeah, and I think what people really like about the totality of what it means to have competitive in Call of Duty is with some new features that we have in Codcasting. So if you're not familiar with Codcasting, this is the view that you use to stream to the people who are watching your tournament, right? So you have to make the game fun to watch. So in order to make the game fun to watch, what you want to do is let the audience have more information than the players have, right? That's why you have things like X-ray, which is the outline of the players so that you can see where they are in the world, even though the other players don't necessarily know where they are that are actually playing. But what's really cool about the casting feature in Black Ops 3 multiplayer is the team identities. So you probably know this if you're a Call of Duty guy, that normally in the game there's factions, there are teams. It's like Black Ops versus CDP, or, you know, Navy SEALs versus whatever, right? So there's usually like these set teams that the game is determined. Well, with the casting feature, you can actually specify the name of the team, and it can be whatever you want. You can be Team Red, I can be Team Blue, we can name those teams, we can set a color that represents that team in the casting view so it's always clear which side a guy's on, and you don't have to try to memorize, right? Because particularly at the pro level, at the highest level of competition, these teams have names and they have brands, Optic and FaZe, right? Denial. These are all like known teams, and they have like their own logos and their own colors that represent them. So now you can represent that in the game. So if you're a fan, right? You don't have to look at the Black Ops logo that comes with the game. You can look at whatever's appropriate for that actual team, using their actual colors. So as a fan, it makes it easy to follow. That was a very important feature for us to be able to get in, and it was demonstrated yesterday in our live stream. There's a video on demand available for that for people who want to check that out.
And I guess that also ties into sort of streaming within the game, that you are able to personalize your stream more than, because that's also something that you've talked about.
Yeah, so what we can do with this game that is a big deal, and is a big deal for Call of Duty eSports in general, is what we call the live event viewer. This is the idea that, let's say that we were running an actual, like the Call of Duty Champions, like a big event. Well, there's lots of places to watch streams, of course, right, across the internet, between Twitch and YouTube and on at CallOfDuty.com itself and other places on the PlayStation console. They have events there. But one of the things that we wanted to be able to do is make sure that that stream can actually be put right inside the game. So if you booted up Black Ops 3 multiplayer, there'd be a little notification that the event's running, and you could just click on it and watch it right then and there. We don't control every screen on the planet, but we have the game, and a lot of people are accessing the game every day and playing every day. So we can use that space, and it's not forced down your throat or anything. It's available to you if you want it, or you can just go about your business.
I mean, it sounds like something that sort of, especially these professional teams, might want to sort of, maybe they don't want to give away their tactics too much, but they may want to create some exposure right within the game.
Yeah, I mean, all the big teams, obviously, they often do their own streams and have their own events. The live event viewer is really for the big important events that are happening, that are official tournaments and official things that are happening in the over the course of the season, over the course, like probably the regional finals and the semifinals and the finals of the championship. Those kinds of big important events are the ones that you'd want to do that with.
So all these features, will they be available from day one, or what's the roll-up plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these features are demonstratable. They were demonstrated in a live environment yesterday, and everything I've discussed for you from the game side will be available, and then we'll deploy the live event viewer at the appropriate time when there's an appropriate event to deploy it for. But generally speaking, in terms of arena, that's day one, and that means protects and bans is day one. That means specialist draft is day one. That means the customization of all those things, like we talked about, is day one.
So what's the in terms of the multiplayer? How do you sort of envision this season of Call of Duty, if you will, this year that you've got sort of the full attention of all the players on the game? How do you sort of see it rolling out? Sort of, are you still sort of committed to that sort of season pass plan, or will you hit more frequently, or what's the plan?
No, so, oh man, I really want to talk about this, but they're still working out the final details, and we did not announce the specifics of what the season for the competitive agenda looks like. Here's what I can tell the fans. I know people are asking about this. I hear you loud and clear. I promise you that the very moment that we have an opportunity to get in front of you to discuss it and make it official and formal, I think people are going to be really surprised by how we're approaching it this year, right? There needs to be a good cadence. You want to have good events on a routine basis, but not so frequent, right? They have to be timed and paced really well so that people can really feel like they can follow, and not have to be committed to it every minute of every day, but can be committed to it, appropriately. And we need to get that locked in. We got to get all the deals signed with all the people, and then we'll be able to actually talk about it.
Yeah, because I feel like the new generation of consoles sort of affords you a little bit of a different strategy than what has been the case in the past.
Yeah, fair enough. So my boss has a saying. He's like, when the game comes out, it's only halfway done, right? You're just sort of starting, right? So we've been at it for 3 years, but when the game comes out, that's just the beginning of what has to happen, right? Because now that the game's in the hands of a lot of people, and now that it's being paid at the professional level in a series of professional events, right? You have to, I mean, we have a reputation. We're very committed to the game. We don't just put it in the box and send it off to be manufactured and then call it a day. We take a quick break, and then we go right back to work, right? There's always downloadable content that needs to be made. There's always supporting each season. In Black Ops 2, that was month to month. We'll find out what it is in Black Ops 3 soon enough. But so there's work to do, right? As soon as you're done making the game, you have to go work on the next part of the game, right? It's only halfway done.
All right, sounds good. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for visiting.